and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a very good thing, okay?
Her campaign says Harris will propose up to $25,000 in down payment support for first-time home buyers who have paid their rent on time for 2 years. Expand the child tax credit, providing up to $6,000 per child, and implement a first-ever federal ban on price gouging on food and groceries.
I can only get so hard. I'm gonna be honest with you. This is great stuff, Chad. I'm not joking when I say this. Like, I was actually shocked when Biden was talking about a federal cap, like federal rent control. That's an insane policy. Like, that's not something that you hear from the Democrats a lot. Biden originally instituted some kind of rent control that was like super, super limited. Okay. Then he turned around and said, we're going to try to push for a federal rent control across the board and we're going to limit it at 5%. That was also pretty fire. Every time they were like, bro, you're old, he would just come out and be like, I'm going to do another progressive populist policy. Every time they would be like, you're old, please leave. He'd be like, I'm doing socialism, Jack. Phenomenal message, worst messenger. I kept saying that back then, and I will repeat that now. Not the worst messenger, and the message is great. I will give credit where credit is due.
She wants price controls, and if they worked, I'd go along with it too, but they don't work.
The former president speaking at his golf club in New Jersey, surrounded by groceries, for a press conference his advisors said would focus on the economy.
We're going to have a crash like a 1929 crash if she gets in.
Harris's running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, accusing Trump of rooting for economic catastrophe.
There is nothing funnier. Democrats literally lie every 4 years about what they will say will happen. What makes you think she isn't lying about literally everything she's saying? You're not wrong about this. Democrats have consistently lied about what they're going to end up doing. The difference in this circumstance is that you have to pay attention to what they're lying about and what they've done so far. On the issue of the economy, the Biden administration has actually pursued through the federal regulatory bodies a pretty radical agenda. That's not a joke. That's not a lie. That is real. That is something that they did. But more importantly than that, Democrats ultimately never make proclamations of this sort. This is new. They do radical proclamations when it comes to like, oh, we're going to do amnesty, which is weirdly enough an area where they're actually retriangulating to the right. And I don't like that. So in a weird way, it's been a complete swap. On the one hand, they literally are pushing for economic policies that they don't openly state ever, things that are like that will immediately be considered like communist, socialist, radical, crazy by the Republicans that they shy away from usually. But on the other hand, they've completely swapped the ticket on stuff like, protections for immigrants, protections for migrants and things of that nature. They've actually shifted on that entirely. You say that this is the first time you remember Dems fighting, right? Well, Kamala is the first admin since 1992 that doesn't have Clinton advisors for economic and foreign policy. She'll turn them down, they asked. This is the shift, in my opinion. Yeah, this is for the Democratic Party. If we are looking at this with respect to like what the Democrats have put forward, usually this is one of the boldest agendas that I've ever seen. And something that's really interesting about the way that they're communicating this agenda is that they're not like, one thing that Kamala Harris said that I found very interesting was, if I win the Senate, we'll do this, right? She didn't just say, oh, we're going to do this when you elect me. She literally has said, once I win the Senate, like once we win Congress and the White House, we will pass this. So that's a really interesting way to message. That's number one. Number two, a lot of the policies that she's talking about, some of the policies that she's talking about does not require congressional power. Some of the things that she's talking about are directly done through the federal regulatory agencies, which she would have control over. So that is actually really solid. Mentioning congressional support also adds a cushion for failure. It's also honest. And I don't know why they don't do that more frequently, because it's good to also mention that you need congressional approval in this situation. And I think it helps the down ballot chances. There are obviously Senate races on the same ballot. There are House races on the same ballot that could tilt in the direction of the Democratic Party's control over both the House of Representatives and the Senate and the White House. So that's like a good thing that I think you should be communicating overall. Here's some of the top of the line things that she unveiled. $6,000 child tax credit for newborns in the first year. Major. Restore Biden's child tax credit. Up to $3,600 monthly checks. Incredible stuff. Up to $25,000 in government assistance for first-time buyers with, I think, like perfect renters credit. That's also pretty solid. Universal $35 insulin cap, which was already like a continuation of the former Like a lot of this stuff is a continuation of Biden's policies, right? Universal $35 cap is an extension. Like it builds on the prior momentum on this sort. 2,000 out-of-pocket cap for pharmaceutical drugs. Incredible work. Other provisions include federal ban on price gouging. This is the one I like a lot, okay? For food and groceries, providing FTC new power to penalize companies. That's major. There was a lot of talk. There was a lot of back and forth among Democratic donors that would go on CNN and say, we want Lena Khan out. Lena Khan has been doing phenomenal work in trust busting at the FTC. She is a shining star that is only there because of Biden's responsiveness to his left flank. All of this are pretty good signs for the future. If Biden has so many good policies, why didn't he use them as talking points during his campaign? Great question. I think the answer is he was so old and so decrepit. That's it. Like that's literally it. I would cringe sometimes when he would say the good policies because I was like, he's the worst person. He is the worst messenger for even good economic populist policies. He just kept going, NATO. That's what he cared about. That's what he remembered. Is price gouging just raising prices? How is it measured? I'm not for this. I just don't understand how you determine if a company has gouged or not. Great question. So price gouging is something that a lot of people understand when it's like times of crisis, right? In a natural disaster zone, for example, all of a sudden people that are selling life-saving supplies or things that are absolute necessities will hike up the prices because there's obviously additional extra demand and limited supply. So they will turn around and just be like, oh yeah, you want toilet paper? It's gonna be $15. This is I believe is technically illegal if I'm not mistaken. The thing is, a lot of corporations across the board in the post-COVID universe have done that for consumer goods in general. You could take a look at it. You can see how much prices have gone up overall and how much other prices have adjusted post-COVID, right? Or like post-logistical hurdles, post-energy crisis. Like there were many different moments where prices have obviously understandably gone up as a consequence of the price of a barrel of gas going up. That increases the prices for everything. It is technically still arbitrary, but you know, this is one of the greatest examples of it. All right. High egg prices and profits at largest US producer soaring more than 700%. For example, egg prices rose 60% last year. This was a major issue. March 29th, 2023. Everybody kept saying, oh, it's because of the avian flu. It's because of the avian flu. Except the major producers of eggs actually weren't even hit by the avian flu. They just jacked up prices because everybody was like, oh, it's the avian flu. They had 0 instances of avian flu and they still jacked up the prices. That is a great example of price gouging in general. Companies taking advantage of the confusion and the chaos and just hiking up prices in general. Why don't they just target monopoly instead of price gouging? What do you think Lena Khan is doing? That's so weird. You just said Lena Khan goat, Lena Khan goat, Lena Khan goat. That's precisely what she's been doing as well. Yeah, landlords raising rent because of market conditions too. That's exactly what it is. Using any and every reason to hike up prices when you don't have any supply issues is precisely what price gouging is. So there's other cool in there, obviously, the EITC expanding that as the earned income tax credit. Working with states to cancel medical debt is a huge one. That's really popular, is really solid in general. Extending ACA subsidies, that's fine. I think that what they should be doing is also expanding Medicare in general. That was a Bernie policy. It's like literally the most popular out of all the policies that Bernie Sanders actually tested. When the latest Data for Progress poll, the latest Data for Progress study that came out, that showed that was polling at like an 80% approval rating or something. Like putting dental vision care on Medicare is like insanely popular with a constituency that actually reliably votes. We're talking about, you know, obviously 65 and over. These are people that do vote reliably. These are people that love their health care. They love their health insurance. So it's a really solid way to sneak in Medicare expansion in general, lower the age of Medicare to 55 maybe, you know, and slowly but surely you arrive at Medicare for all. Who knows? So there's that. Clever way to think about what's happening on CTC, child tax credit. The next question is, how does Harris pay for these initiatives? The temporary Biden CTC alone was $1.4 trillion or so over 10 years, and a blanket extension of ACA subsidies is $270 billion over a decade. There are also some supply side initiatives for